So today we've got Colin from Greenwich, who will be covering or talking, telling us more about the assistive technology pilot he is overseeing at Greenwich. But before that, just to say hi everyone, I'm Genta. I keep forgetting to introduce myself in every single session. So hi, I'm Genta. I'm LOTI's program manager. And in the next slide, some of you would have probably seen this, but this is just a very brief summary of all the different projects we are currently working on with LOTI boroughs. In previous sessions, we've talked about the library of case studies and research we've been working on with our researcher, Annalise Levy. We've also had colleagues from Hackney talk about the templates they've created with us. But today, as I mentioned, we have our guest, Colin from Greenwich, to talk and discuss, tell us more about the pilot he is leading on there. A very brief reminder just to say that we've been, as I mentioned, we've been working with a researcher who's been looking at the evidence base for the effectiveness of different assistive technologies in social care. She's looked at different outcomes and the impact of those technologies in realising those outcomes. You can find that more in the LOTI website, and when we share the slides, you'll be able to click through the direct link to that. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Colin, and over to you, Colin.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Just to give you a bit of background about myself, I've worked in local government for about 20 years, or just over 20 years, and most of that has been around assistive technology and telecare. I recently come to Greenwich in August, seems a bit longer than that actually, and when I turned up there, there were two specific products they were looking at. One of them was the Amazon Echo, and it was a really sort of clear premise, which is always nice when we're doing pilots. But the hypothesis was that assistive technology can improve customers' physical, mental health and promote independence, reduce anxiety, and hopefully diminish the cost of care. So with that in mind, really started looking at this project. So the focus being social isolation. Have I got control of the slides, or is some? Fantastic, thank you. So social isolation. This is something that I think we're all experiencing a little bit of now, which is good for me in one sense, because I can really truly reflect on the type of things some of our more vulnerable clients are going through. Now, social isolation is obviously being compounded by COVID-19, but we also wanted to look at people that were already on that trajectory. So looking at people with reduced mobility, which over time will potentially affect their ability to access social environments. Now, the barriers to this, which is pretty common in a lot of the AT stuff I see, is internet being one of them. The willingness to engage in new technology is another one. And something I'll touch on a little bit later, I think there's also some thoughts that we have as professionals around new technology when we see it. And sometimes I think we judge it just a little bit too harshly. But like I say, I'll come back to that. So with the sort of barriers that we had in mind, cohort selection was the real challenge, if I'm honest. So in the early part, it wasn't that there are not lots of people that have mobility problems, that their situations are being compounded by COVID. It was those digital barriers. So it was having access to the internet, the willingness to use new technology. And we had to take a slightly different tact. So normally I would go to OTs and social workers and we'd collect a cohort of people and then look at their suitability. With the current pandemic and their caseloads, a lot of these people are at the end of the spectrum where this might not be the best solution, or that those barriers exist and we might not be able to get them over that hurdle. So I looked for a service that had a digital interface anyway. And by that, I mean, I moved to the mobility team, the Blue Badge team, who have high contact with vulnerable clients. Most of them have started a process online via an email, an e-form. So I already knew that some of those barriers were removed. So that gave us the ability to create a small questionnaire to screen customers as they come through and select a cohort that I could then take back to the OTs and social workers and say, do you think these will be suitable for the pilot? That really did solve a big problem for us, especially with the pandemic, especially with OTs and social work caseloads being so high. I could take a lot of that pressure off them and then bring them candidates rather than have them go away and find them. So then that moves us on to the Amazon Echo itself. Now, for those of you that are not aware, Amazon Echo Show 8 is an Alexa skills device. You'll probably see them widely advertised that you can speak to. It's an internet interface, but it also, lots of companies have developed Amazon skills so you can actually interface with services or connect with services using voice only. The Amazon Echo has a screen as well. So as one of my clients found out, is pretty much using it as a tablet. Now, the good thing about the Amazon Echo is, for the customer's point of view, there's not much to learn. It's purely voice activated. It's very good at recognizing speech, accents, and it does learn by using control words when we set up. So it isn't the same as introducing a laptop or a desktop, which seemed to be the fear of most of the cohort that we spoke to in the early part of it. Was they didn't really want to learn new skills, or they were frightened to learn new skills. With the Amazon Echo, it's just talking. And I have to say, that part of it made it a much easier sell. Once we just set it up, people started playing with it instantly. And as you can see, dotted around the screen, are some of the early feedback comments that I've received. My favorite one is, my husband says it's making me lazy. This is largely because apparently Amazon is now choosing what they eat at night. So she asks Amazon, what's a good dinner? It comes up with a list of selections. She chooses one, takes the recipe, and then cooks from there. This client also, I have to say, was probably our most embracive. Went out, bought light bulbs, sockets, and has essentially created a small smart home. At the moment, it's confined to a living room, but hence my husband thinks it's making me lazy, because now all the lights are controlled by Amazon, the sockets are controlled by Amazon. She controls what music they listen to. It's become a talking point in their living room. And the other one I quite like is, I like getting the rugby scores, but the wife watches a Star Trek on it. The device was primarily for John, and what happened was his wife as well started using the device. They now have allocated times. So John has it during the day, his wife has it at night, where she can watch her Star Trek, which I found out is actually Picard, that she has on Amazon Prime. She used to watch her own shows in a spare room on a desktop, because that was their only way to connect to the internet. She now primarily uses it like a tablet, taking it from room to room, so that she can watch her shows while her husband's doing something else. So a kind of benefit in a benefit. And I have to say, music seems to be the top early feedback. Everyone's listening to music, everyone's listening to radio. Now, all of this isn't exactly what I had in mind when I put it in. I thought potentially it could encourage some of the users to start investigating some videos. I suggested some that they could watch now around their physical health, their conditions, different exercises, trying to encourage some mobilization in the home. But just like all of us, it almost turned into Netflix and chill. They're using it to explore the internet. They're using it to explore content, which is exciting. It's some of the stuff they didn't know. And because it's such an instant feedback, so unlike a Google search where you'll have to go through lots and lots and lots of answers to a specific question, Amazon produces maybe only one or two and then asks you to explore further. So with music, they're not scrolling through to find it. They can say the name of the artist, say the name of the song they want, and the Amazon Echo will pretty much play it straight out of the bat. So they're using it for distraction to social isolation rather than necessarily improving their current situation, which some would say is a typically human thing to do. So as we've gone through this, the little bullet point there that says Amazon Assistive Technology ? The reason I put that there was because that was probably my first statement when I heard about this pilot. Not that I didn't know that it had been used in different places. I know Hampshire have run an Amazon Echo trial. It was bridging the concept in my mind about what assistive technology was. I primarily dealt with the sort of higher end, the tech-enabled care, and looking for very specific cause and effect with devices. This is slightly more subtle, and it took a little bit of reframing for me personally. We often think of the smart home environment for being the tip of the spear when it comes to innovation. We associate it with young people, businessmen, services. It's very new, but actually in the creation of that, what they've done is created a very simple to use interface that could be used at the other end of the spectrum. But we don't normally associate those two things together. A smart home environment for an older person, a more vulnerable person, or a person with mobility issues is actually a very practical assistive technology move, being able to control your lights, being able to control your switches. So I kind of wanted to unpack that a little bit and look. I've been looking at what did we do before we had the technology and how did we judge those things? So, for example, someone has limited mobility, they're stuck in their living room. We tend to move all of their devices closer to them because we know they're not as mobile. So that might be the relocation of sockets so that they can control their lights, their radios, their TVs. And we bring everything much, much closer. And then we apply no scrutiny after that. So we're quite happy to spend money and move sockets around. But the suggestion of introducing a device that controlled the sockets, instantly people want to start looking at data. So if I don't have to bring everything close to the customer, but they can control their environment in just the same way, using voice recognition, I want the radio on, I want my lamp on, I want my lights on, I want my curtains opened. We start to treat that slightly differently. Cost instantly gets spoken about. What's the data supporting behind it? Now, this is a bit of a thought for me, and maybe other people have had this thought regularly, but this kind of unpackaging of this idea about how we treat assistive technology and practical solutions, and why isn't it that the assistive technology is deemed practical? I've never seen an OT blink about spending money on grab rails, moving sockets, adjusting heights of chairs, because we see those things as very, very practical. On the reverse side, the instant we say, oh, here's something new, we start focusing on cost and how it relates to a service and how is it connected. But we don't ask that of a socket movement or a grab rail. So it's really interesting for me to unpack this as a thought. And if I'm honest, I've become quite excited about the possibilities of the Amazon Echo as an interface, as a smart home, as assistive tech. And I think at the moment, because we don't have that data, we can only really go on the subjective well-being of the customer. So how they feel about the product, what they think is happening, how they view the product. But nevertheless, my early part of this is showing me people are excited by it in a way that they wouldn't be excited about a new telecare device. They're not frightened of it in the same way they would be about a laptop or a desktop. You know, lots of the clients I've met do have or have had access to the internet, but they still revert to those old types. Many of them had smartphones. The smartphone itself was a telephone and a messaging device. It wasn't a way to explore the internet. And what I found is this device does that. So there is a digital inclusion piece in there. But more importantly, people are just exploring and having fun with it. And I suppose my question more to myself is, do we need any more than that? Would we treat a practical solution any more harshly? I'm not sure. So it's just food for thought. Like I said, for me, the Amazon Echo has really kind of opened my eyes to some other possibilities. The cohort that are involved seem to like it a lot. And hopefully once I wrap these projects up, sort of end of February, I'll be able to bring you back some more concrete findings and some of the well-being questionnaires. But yeah, that's all for me. If there's any questions.
Thanks, Colin. That's really helpful to know. I think Bradley's got a question about capacity and how you manage the sign-up process.
So the sign-up process. So in terms of selecting a cohort, that was using the Blue Badge team. Those customers were coming to Greenwich. I didn't have to go out and find them. So what we got was large people interfacing with the council anyway regarding a specific thing, in this case, Blue Badge. As Blue Badge clients, they were already of a vulnerable capacity and they'd already accessed internet-based services anyway. It kind of sped that along. So like everybody knows, OT social works are stretched very much so at the moment. Taking that pressure off them was the easiest way to do it, if I'm honest. So the call handlers asked a series of entry questions such as, do you have access to the internet? Have you ever shopped with Amazon before? How would you rate your overall digital capacity? It was worded slightly better than that. And to kind of get a feel for them, and then asking them if they wanted to be part of the pilot, which then gave us that kind of sign up as well. So that was the quickest way to get as many as possible without putting additional strain on other services.
Thanks, Colin. That's really, really helpful. We've got another question that relates to why you chose Amazon Echo over another device or similar device such as Google Home.
So the device was at Greenwich before I got here, and I believe that there has been a long-standing relationship with Amazon and Kit, who's the AD here. So that device was something that was presented up front. So I think for me that the main point is maybe not necessarily the device behind it. It's that voice recognition software. It's the ability to communicate with a device using your voice, which took away a lot of the barriers that I would traditionally see when I was trying to introduce new technology in a home. So if anyone ever wants to do a Google to Amazon comparison, that would be great to see that as an independent AT trial and then compare them up. But I think for me, it's more that interface that's making the difference rather than the physical device.
Thank you, that's really helpful. And just to mention at this point as well, we will be publishing a case study library of about 150 case studies in the next few weeks. So hopefully that will provide kind of more examples for how different pieces of tech are used in different contexts. One last question, Colin. So firstly, how many devices did you deploy? And then how did you manage the Amazon account creation process? Did you have to actually create one, and how did you do that?
So we've got 8 currently deployed in the field. The Amazon sign up was part of the initial questionnaire with the Blue Badge team. So it's one of the questions we'd asked right out the bat is, had they shopped with Amazon before? Did they have an Amazon account? At least one of the cohort didn't have an Amazon account. Now we got around that by really talking to the next of kin. There is an apprehension about signing up to things like accounts because the assumption is money will come out and that there's payment. In this case, we used a next of kin to do that process. One of the other things for me was because of the COVID situation, I really couldn't spend a lot of time physically showing people the device, how to set it up. So it was very much a handoff process and then kind of coming back to them and talking them through the various steps, which I think would have been easier for those customers that didn't have accounts if we were doing this large scale, because someone could take the time and go through it with them. Yes, it was a hurdle. I tried to eliminate that hurdle by putting it up front as a questionnaire. And like I said, the one person that didn't have it, we used next of kin to kind of get them through that process.
Thank you, everyone. And again, thanks, Colin, and thanks for everyone to everyone for asking those questions. Couple more seconds, I think. I'll pause for a few more seconds just in case there are any questions. Otherwise, we will close. I'm looking at the chat. There don't seem to be any. I can't see any further questions. So. Oh, one last question. Was a data privacy impact assessment completed as part of the process?
So yeah, the part of the sign-up agreement is we looked at the data on the devices and what we can share and what we can't share. As you know, the biggest thing around the Amazon Alexa is we're probably not going to be able to draw any data out of it. Most of the data is owned by Amazon, and they use it for marketing and things like that. So there is, as part of the sign-up, you know, there's an agreement to Amazon's conditions as well as our own. We did a sign-up that essentially gave them what data we'd be using, how we would use it. The impact, like I said, largely is it's kind of a commercial device and we can't see what data Amazon's capturing. We have asked, or I should say I have asked, and generally it's around marketing and stuff. So what interests are in there so that they can promote those interests, especially around purchases. Anyone that's used Amazon knows when you start purchasing stuff, it'll throw up anything in that realm, or even if you've looked at it. So there isn't any personal data in there, so that the risk is quite low, but it is a third-party device. It is a private sector device, and there has to be a level of capacity for the customer to sign up to that and understand what that means. Hopefully that helped.
Thank you. That's incredibly helpful, Colin, and thank you very much to everyone as well for attending and for asking all the questions. We look forward to hearing more about the project and looking forward to speaking to everyone next Friday. On that note, thank you very much and have a lovely rest of the day.